And no. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Overdose and Chill Live. We're at number 65, episode 65. I'm not sure where all these weeks are disappearing to, but here we are now. We're broadcasting live on Facebook, on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube right now. And we have our lovely guest today from Ceres Tag, Mina. Mina, welcome to Overdose and Chill.
Thanks, Elliot. Excited to be here.
Good to have you. Good to have you. In this talk today, we're going to be chatting to Mina about a whole range of things. Where she came from, where she's been in her career, what led her to Ceres Tag, a little bit about Ceres Tag. Anybody watching, feel free to pop questions in via whichever channel you happen to be watching through. Our moderator will pop questions up on the screen and we'd be happy to talk through them. Pretty casual chat today. Mina and I have been working together for, I think, since May, 21, roughly, yeah. Maybe a bit before that as well. I think May is in my head because that's when you actually launched the product, isn't it?
Yeah.
And, we've been working with you on your sort of product launches and market entries, and it's been quite an exciting time. I'd love to hear a little bit about you. Introduce yourself to the audience. Let us know how you ended up at Ceres Tag, where you started before you were at Ceres Tag, and what led you into this role. And a little bit about, I want to dive into Ceres Tag as a product, as a startup, as a agri-tech business. It's all really interesting stuff, which we'll dive into, but I'd love you to give the intro as to the business itself as well.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with me.
There was a lot in there.
Yeah, that's it. There was a few questions nested in that. So I started my career, I guess, with a degree in UI UX design. I was really interested in the customer journey and interactive design back in 2010, 2011. It looked quite different to what it looks like now. And finished that degree, tried to get some placements with some different dev agencies, and kind of realized that I didn't really like taking briefs that much. So moved into a marketing role with an early e-com company that was or fashion retail business that was e-commerce, that was then absorbed by a larger company, and that company was called Adrift. And I was with Adrift for about 5 years before moving on to Ceres Tag. So Adrift is a online fashion retailer, as well as we had several bricks and mortar stores. We were in David Jones and across a whole bunch of wholesalers across Australia. But online was kind of my space. I was head of e-commerce and marketing in that role. And I guess the beauty of, working with a business that starts quite small and ends up pretty medium-sized as you get to kind of have a finger in every pie, learn a lot about the different, business functions. I learned a lot about manufacturing and production, as well as operations and getting a business to function really well, as well as all the e-commerce marketing. We did lots of different, amazing brand campaigns, as well as digital campaigns and beyond. So yeah, that was a really exciting part of my career. We used to launch 50 products every 2 weeks, so we had a really high catalog, really high turnover of stock. And then last year was approached by the team at Ceres Tag to come on board as e-commerce and marketing manager. I have no agricultural background, no experience in the ag space, but was really interested in the technology and what they were doing. So it seemed like the right time for me to kind of diversify what I was doing. And have been there for almost a year since.
That's great. I'm really keen to learn more about the Ceres team's ideas and goals behind poaching someone from the fashion industry and from that sort of high volume e-commerce world, bringing them into this kind of space, which is obviously very different. But can you give us, before we dive too deep into, what Ceres is doing and the kind of things that you're looking at, give us the elevator pitch to Ceres Tag. What is the platform, the technology? It is a product, it is a service. talk us through what you're doing.
Yeah. So Ceres Tag is the world's first direct-to-satellite animal ear tag. So we initially started with our livestock product, and that has now progressed into lots of different types of animals. But we are primarily a data platform that pulls through metrics on the location, health and welfare, and the ambient temperature of the device of that animal through to the end user as well.
That's really cool. That's when we first approached by you, we thought, surely this is something that has been solved before. It's something that, I'm mostly a city boy. I'm not, I don't come from a farming background, but it seemed to me that, this is obviously very advanced. Like, you've been working with groups like CSIRO, you've been working with design agencies to produce this device, but it was actually quite innovative, isn't it? It's relatively new product in the market, if not unique.
Yeah, and I mean, the founders were said told on a number of occasions that this was impossible, that they should pack up their books, that it wasn't going to be able to be done. And after 5 years of research and development, we're a commercial product. We're currently in 18 countries across the world, so it was possible. We did do it, and people are using the product as well. So yeah.
So what about the product is making a farmer, a rancher in the States, someone who has livestock, how's it making their lives easier? What is it doing that makes them want that product and actually want to utilize it?
Yeah, so I mean, there's no one specific use case, and each producer is different in terms of how they run their property, what their ultimate business goals are. And I guess that's kind of the beauty of the technology, is we create this foundation of data and information that wasn't previously available. And the user can apply that to, whatever their business goals are. If it's that they're experiencing stock theft and, they're losing a lot of their stock, it can improve that. If it's that they want to improve their operational efficiencies, their mustering efficiencies, which is a big topic in Australia, obviously such vast landscapes, the tag can work for that. If it's that, we've got a producer in Montana who lives in Indianapolis, and his ranch is in Montana, and he just likes the peace of mind that he can log in and see what his animals are doing. There's lots of different use cases, and I think as a business we try not to tell our customers what they can do with the technology, but rather tell us what your problem is and we'll help you work out how the technology can fix it.
And it cuts out a lot of the other kind of infrastructure you need on a farm or on a ranch or on a plot of land as well, doesn't it? So it's a direct to satellite connection. That means you don't
that's
need
kind of
a middle layer there.
Yeah, that's kind of the key difference between Ceres Tag and other products, animal monitoring products out there in the market, is that to set up animal monitoring, you have to go down the path of setting up infrastructure and network connectivity in your property, which for some, very flat property owners, landowners, is quite an easy process. But in lots of places in the world, Australia, the US, New Zealand, the EU, we're not dealing with flat terrain. It's very mountainous, rugged.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. There's trees, forestry, bush. So setting up that infrastructure can be quite costly. So Ceres Tag cuts out all of that and it goes direct to satellite. And the other great thing about that is that, if producers are interested in trialing the technology, they're not sure where they're going to see value from it, they can start small, only buy a couple, and kind of, scale up from there. They haven't put, 3 great towers in the middle of their property, and decide they don't like it.
Sure, that's not cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
So going back to, your initial conversations with the business before you jumped on board, what were the areas that you thought, hang on, are my skills going to be, compatible with this kind of role? Where I come from this kind of background, sorry. I'm used to this kind of sales, B2C sales, direct to consumer, but also wholesale channels and those sorts of things through a fashion brand, and I'm really good at that. How am I going to apply these skills to Ceres Tag, or is that their goal, to actually take those skills and adapt them to the product?
Yeah, well, I think it kind of speaks to maybe the type of person that I am, that in my initial meetings, I came out of those going, whoa, I did not understand anything they said. They are so smart. I want to be a part of that. But yeah, that was exactly it. The team at Ceres Tag, across the board in our different business functions, have acquired talent from outside the industry and bringing those that broader view into what we're doing, so that we can look at things, in a new way. This is disruptive technology, so we don't want to, we don't want to do things the way that they've always been done. And particularly because because we don't need that infrastructure. There's no need for us to run through sales reps that come out, talk to you, suss out your property. The team at Ceres Tag had identified that they could run through an e-commerce platform, and they wanted someone that was really experienced in e-commerce to help them with that. So that's kind of where the attraction lie, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think one of the great things that you're doing, and this is something that we obviously saw early on when we were having those conversations about how you're actually going to address the market, is the amount of thought and effort and content that was put into how you're actually going to approach these various markets. And it is a broad, it's not just one big market. There's a huge range of smaller markets that have utilization of your product or, capability
Definitely.
to use it.
And being able to take some of that segmentation and personalization that we, really dove heavily into in the fashion industry and apply it to agriculture has been super interesting. I mean, just like there is no one dress for every person, as I was saying before, there's no one way that people are using this technology, and there's lots of different animals out there, lots of different use cases. A farmer is not just older man in a bigger Cobra anymore. They take many different shapes of forms, and so being able to talk to all those customers in different ways has been a huge goal for us in setting up this product.
I know that there have been times when you've actually gone out on site and you've gone out to big photo shoots and content production plans, and you've gone out to massive farm spaces out in the likes of Western Queensland and that sort of thing. Is that kind of what you expected in your career when you're starting in fashion and you may be doing photo shoots, you're working with models in photo studios and that sort of thing? Has that been kind of exciting, just to be in a completely different world like that?
Definitely, yeah. It's super exciting to get out onto big properties and just see how they operate, and being able, we talk about in the office how things run, but being able to have that contextual experience is so invaluable. So the fact that we've been able to do that has been amazing. But also, yeah, being able to bring some of the fashion world into that. My experience with working with videographers and camera crews, and being able to run a really efficient shoot has been really helpful as well. We've gotten so much content out of that, which has been fantastic. But yeah, I mean, I certainly didn't see myself talking about estrus detection or carving a year ago, but here I am.
Fair enough. We'll get back to that. But we do have a question coming through from the audience, from Lex, one of our Brisbane team members up here at Overdose. What has been the most challenging thing for you since being at Ceres Tag? And that might be personally or professionally. But for you, but also as a business, what has been the most challenging thing? So both on a personal level, professional, and from a business perspective, what has been the most challenging thing for you, do you think?
Yeah, so I guess personally, there was so many transferable skills that were easily applied to what I do at Ceres Tag, but being able to understand that contextual background, being able to so much of what I do is based in storytelling, and so being able to understand what is going to be valuable to those customers through this story that we're telling has been really important for me to get my head around. I think for us as a business, the most difficult thing at this point has been we are disrupting an entire industry. People have been running livestock the same way for hundreds of years. I have said earlier today that 15 years ago, if we had have held up a iPhone brick and said, you'll be spending $2,000 on this and it will be integral to your everyday life, you would have turned around and gone, yeah, nah, not for me. And that's really what we're doing with this technology. We believe that it will be integral to the way that livestock and animals are managed all across the supply chain. And so being at the helm of that and, the start of that change can be really, really difficult in terms of educating an entire industry, but also working with them to improve their efficiencies.
Cool. And just a hint for anybody watching as well, feel free to pop your questions in as well. We'll do our best to get all of them up and ask Mina any of your burning questions. Back to that content piece that we were talking through, managing film crews, and I've seen some of that content. It is amazing. And it's just amazing seeing a lot more of the Australian outback in content. It might not be being utilized in the fashion world as much as it could be, but seeing some of the incredible sort of natural environment that we have in Australia being presented is incredible. That's just a personal note for me. I'm enjoying that.
Yeah, and I mean, the beauty is that all of that is authentic. It's not something that we stage, which is a lot of what we used to do in fashion. We'd stage up these shoots and, put a model in a specific shot. And, none of what we've done has been staged. It's all been authentic based off what the producers are actually doing, which is pretty amazing, I think.
Are you finding it, I think I mentioned before, you had quite a detailed marketing strategy and you had content pillars which spoke to each one of those particular segments or audiences that you might have been talking to. Is that becoming a challenge, producing the content for each of those audiences, or are you finding enough crossover and utilization across all the content that you're producing that is actually relevant to broad audiences, or do you really have to push yourself to go, we're not speaking enough to this particular audience?
Look, I think we've definitely found like themes in talking to those different audiences, and COVID has been amazing for us in being able to talk to producers that we have in the US and different regions that may not have been as keen to jump on a Zoom call in the past, but are now jumping on with us pretty frequently and sharing their story, and we're able to repurpose that into content as well. But it's a timeline thing as well. We're not running through 50 dresses every 2 weeks. The industry is seasonal, so making sure that we time everything to time up with when people are doing things, and also ensuring that they have enough time with the product as well, has been really critically important to that content.
On the product side of things, so the actual device, I know a couple of days ago you actually won a Good Design Award for that product, which is really incredible. Well done for that. And it must have been, like you said, there was 5 years, I think you said, of development of that actual device. And I can always imagine, I've never done it myself, but the speed at which technology advances, though so many things change over those 5 years. So a design you had running 2 years ago is irrelevant now because this particular component or battery capacity or something has changed there. How did you know, and I'm not sure if you're directly involved in this, but how did you know when that product was actually ready? Next year you could do different stuff with it. Next year you could actually do this instead of that. You might have a version 2. At what point do you decide this product is ready to ship, and we're going to put these prototypes into production?
Yeah, well, I mean, I only joined the company a year ago, so I wasn't part of that full journey. But we had conducted or did some market research and had conducted some early interest in trials and having customers involved in some pre-commercial trials. And really that was kind of the foundation for launching. We also used Beef Week in Rockhampton as our launching point. So it was really being able to launch at that global event, and Beef is an event that is known all over the world, based in Rockhampton. So being able to time all of our efforts to that was really critical as well. And the development process isn't over. We're constantly listening to our customers' feedback and seeing how we can continue to improve in our offering and take on board what they have to say. So I think perfectionism is fantastic, but it can be a difficult thing, and we have learned more from the customer feedback that we've gotten in the last 6 months, I think, than what we would have had we have gotten that product to a perfect level, although it is pretty perfect already.
Yeah, that's right. And I've spent my time in the startup scene as well, and the common phrase is that done is better than perfect, and you've got to get it to market.
Exactly.
You've got to test it in the real world.
And a big component of what we do, which is a lot of people that haven't purchased the product don't realize it's actually our data platform. So the hardware is one aspect, and that's obviously the physical thing that's collecting the data. But our data platform, which is the platform that pushes through that data from the tag to our end consumer, is constantly being worked on and developed. And that experience is really critically important to our customer retention. And that's something that we work on with our development team, and is constantly being rolled out to new releases, new features, that kind of a thing. So there are two sides to it, and they're both being worked on, which is super exciting. We're not stagnant.
Yeah, that's really cool. Onto your digital strategy. How are you finding? So there exists a technology in the world already, which is pretty widely used. Traditional type tags for cattle and livestock and all sorts of other animals. There's a certain way of doing things that's been probably used for decades, I presume. Certain markets are not looking for new technologies all the time. They don't know necessarily that there's a problem that could be solved, or not necessarily a problem, but something that could be more efficient. How are you finding and activating those new audiences? You mentioned you went live at Beef Week. So you're in the face of these people and having those conversations, but obviously there's a much broader market than that. What are the ways that you're actually reaching those new markets? You're not selling clothes to people who already wear them and are always looking for what's next in fashion. You're actually talking about a new product, activating a brand new market where there wasn't one before. Talk us through that strategy.
Yeah, so we have a digital by default strategy, and that really kind of tailors quite well to our global approach. We don't need to have boots on the ground in every single region because we have this e-com platform. But it was something that was really interesting in starting out, and working with the Overdose team was so fantastic in terms of the research they do. But there weren't a lot of existing agricultural businesses that were spending in the ad space. There is no industry benchmarking that we could look to kind of see if our ROI stacks up. So we've kind of been learning and at the helm of it in that space as well. But the fact of the matter is that farmers and producers are just like everybody else. They're on Facebook in the morning. They're using Google to search for what they can do, and there's a lot of word of mouth as well. So we're leveraging off those platforms to create that digital community, and have that feedback to our e-com platform.
Cool. So you are using data in a way that is much more focused, well, not focused on, but in a way that an e-commerce brand would use data. You're utilizing that data, you're learning from it, you're finding the opportunities there. And
yeah, I pulled up a visualization and sent it to the broader team just this morning of an EDM we sent last night of our map, and it is literally far and wide. You couldn't place where we've got more customers in one region than another. So, we've had to take that broad approach to be able to cater to all those markets. And I think pigeonholing ourselves would be doing a disservice to, the capability of this technology.
On the flip side of that, what's been more of a struggle than you thought it might have been from a digital first sort of strategy? Have there been any pitfalls? Have there been any challenges? Obviously there have been, but there's known challenges or what you expect, and then you have the challenge where you're like, holy crap, I didn't realize this was going to be so hard.
Yeah, so I think being able to get across that value proposition and realizing how long the consideration phase is for our customers. So we've got customers coming back to the website over 15 times in the space of 3 months was something that I wasn't really expecting, that it was going to be that long of a process for some people to really consider if this technology is right for them. But in the long term, it does make sense. We're asking them to make a pretty hefty choice about their business, and we're asking them to invest in their business as well. So I guess for us, it's been ensuring that we create those touch points along those 15 times and make sure that they're aware that they can reach out to us at any time and communicate with us. And we're using different booking tools and customer service tools to kind of create that line of connection regardless of where our customers are.
Yeah. You mentioned ways that the product is being used now that you didn't imagine before or didn't think about, or maybe you had thought about it but didn't think there was a market for it. I know there's a few sort of ways that you're looking to find other sort of niche markets for the product. What are some of the ways that it's being used? What are some of the sort of new, I guess, areas of wildlife or animals that you're looking at where there's a better application, not necessarily better, but an alternative application for the product?
Yeah, so we started with our livestock product, and that's really where this technology was born. The founders both came from livestock backgrounds and were looking to solve a problem, and kind of, unawares, we developed this product that also really suits wildlife conservation and researchers. And it was really just through them coming to us that we realized, hey, there's actually something in this. So off the back of that, we are launching a wildlife product. So it's exactly the same in terms of its form and its size, but the data transmits are slightly more, and the internals are slightly catered more towards that wildlife market. But since kind of generating that interest, we've had customers tagging rhinos, giraffe, cheetah just last week.
Amazing.
Which I think, if you'd asked the founders 3 years ago, do you think this would be on cheetah and giraffe and those type of different applications, they wouldn't have been able to guess it. And it's been really interesting to learn such a different application. Livestock is very commercial businesses, but this type of philanthropy and being able to ensure the security and welfare of those animals is huge across the globe. So being able to provide technology that assists in that has been really interesting for us in that developing space, and hopefully something that we can continue on that journey with, those
absolutely.
researchers.
And I guess there's obviously minimal work you need to do on the actual physical product. The same product can be applied to any type of animal. It's just a matter of what you're tracking on the platform. Cheetah has a very different heart rate to an elephant or a rhino, and being able to sort of match those alerts and heuristics around that particular animal is all just stuff that can be tweaked in the software.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. Those movement patterns, making those assessments on what's happening with this animal as a result of the data that you have. And the wildlife industry has some of the world's most accomplished statisticians in the world. So, being able to get access to their brains has been really interesting.
Do you find yourself referring back to, because I know you work with groups like CSIRO and others who are experts in various fields, obviously. Are you talking to them from a marketing perspective as well? Obviously, there's product research and applications and how to do specific things from a technical level, but you also communicate with these groups from a marketing level. Obviously, they talk to a wide, diverse range of people in all sorts of industries. Are you drawing on that from a marketing perspective and understanding how to communicate with certain customers, or is that just more of a technical conversation where they're putting together, specifics of a product or an application?
We're really lucky in our relationship with our partners, and they are partnerships. And being involved in the technology doesn't kind of stop with the hardware itself. And so we've definitely been able to work with the CSIRO team to get that out, but also our industrial designers and our manufacturers. They all bring different perspectives to the table, and being able to work with them. Our industrial designer actually comes from a cattle property as well. So being able to have worked with him and take his perspective out of it, particularly having just won the Good Design Awards, has been, really integral in informing that context for sure.
Cool. From a personal perspective, now that you're working in an industry that's very different from the last few years that you spent time in, are you enjoying getting out there and talking to these groups of people that are outside of the sort of world you were in previously? Are you enjoying getting out to these farms and meeting these people, actually seeing, because we're so sheltered from it, most of us in the largest part of the population in the city areas of Australia, we're so sheltered from, what happens in the bush, where most of our food comes from. Are you enjoying actually getting out there and talking to people and seeing what life is like for them as well?
Yeah, definitely. And, being able to take their personal experiences and understand the back end of what informs their choices has, really evolved my understanding of, how we should be talking to these customers and, what kind of content and strategy we should be putting forward, because as you said, we are quite disassociated from it in the city and in metro areas. I live on a 200 square meter block, and and one of our producers that we work with is on over 1 million acres. So of course our lifestyles are completely different, and I think if we took a stock standard approach to that, well, we'd be completely missing the mark. But yeah, I mean, it's always worthwhile to get out and actually talk to your customer. That it's never, digital is never going to replace that. But It's really great that digital technology has allowed us to include, be able to talk to more of those customers.
That's a very good question coming through from Andrew Freeland. Will there be an ability in the future to tag for conservation of marine animals?
Look, at this point, we're working on terrestrial animals. So, but we recently said, what if someone put it on, we wouldn't ever go into birds, and we just found out that somebody is going to be tagging vultures. So,
right.
Everything's a possibility.
Would never rule it out. It is an interesting one as well. We think about the land mass that we live on, and Australia is pretty massive. But it'll be a whole other challenge when 2/3 of the planet is covered in water, tracking whale movements or dolphins or other endangered marine species. There'd be a whole other sort of technological challenge to do that. I guess there are, trackers out there. But yeah, that would be a really interesting one to tackle. What have you learned? If you ever end up back in another industry, a more, let's call it mainstream sort of industry, what do you reckon you could take out of this particular role that would apply, if you went back in time and ended up back in, some of the fashion retailers you work for, what would you say to yourself is, some of the learnings that you didn't think about previously that you'd actually be able to take back into that industry, or any for the people watching who might be in those industries that you never actually thought about this at the time, but you've actually really learnt this specific skill or way of thinking about your customers in Ceres Tag that you'd actually apply back into those industries?
Yeah, I mean, I think that element of storytelling and looking at the bigger picture has been, a massive learning. We were quite short-sighted in fashion in that, we'd work week by week, and then we'd have our big events, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Christmas, Boxing Day, all that kind of thing. But we churned through a lot of product, and definitely being able to step back and have a look at the broader impact that your business is having on, the industry and as well, and the world. And, particularly this technology applies across the entire supply chain, something that, the developers of this product have really thought about, and, the end of life of the product and that full circular economy. Which is something that is, I think, really disregarded in other industries. And yeah, something that has become a growing interest for me, being able to look at those big pictures and what else does this impact, rather than just, what the obvious use case is.
Absolutely. I think that's fantastic. And it's, especially for a lot of fast moving products where it's about turning over volume, going into something that has a brand that means something and stands for something, whether it's animal welfare or farmer welfare, and having that brand that has an element of trust behind it. Like, these guys are actually trying to help, trying to actually improve our lives or improve the well-being of the animals that are being tracked. I think it changes your opinion on sort of a commercial business, and what it can be. In terms of, going from what you're doing now in terms of tagging and tracking animals, are there other sort of commercial adventures and ways that you're looking at, helping farmers or helping agriculture in general?
Yeah, so we've got our core product based off the technology, and that's Ceres Tag and Ceres Wild, but based off the relationships that the entire team has with different ag tech developers and inventors, that we realized that there wasn't a lot of collaboration happening within industry, and that there was a real opportunity for us to develop something that created a space for those inventors to get their product to market digitally. So we are launching another platform called the Ag Tech Store, and that is an online marketplace for ag tech technology, all the way from water monitoring, livestock monitoring, and beyond, to really also partner with those customers and help them in modernizing what they're doing and improving their operational efficiency as well. So that platform's launching at the end of January. So we've got lots going on, which is super exciting. But yeah, I think there's a real opportunity in agriculture. Again, they're surprising because their marketplaces are so common in other industries. There is no central place for anybody that's looking to start digitizing their farm to go to and find the technology, but also buy it. There's lots of different places that talk about the technology, but nowhere that creates that direct path to purchase. So I think through the Ag Tech Store, we're really going to be able to learn more about the customer, but assist all of these great inventors and entrepreneurs in getting their product out there.
It really builds the brand as a trusted partner, not just for the people that you're selling a product to and providing a service to right now, but for the entire agricultural sector, where you do have, agri-tech is a term for a reason, because there are some people they're doing incredible technology things for the agricultural industries, but they're good at making products. They're good at actually producing technology, but you've actually done the hard yards when it actually you've done the hard yards when it comes to actually going to market, and you know what that takes. So being able to be that support layer to them, builds your brand within the technology agri-tech community, but also as a trusted partner for these end users as well.
Definitely. I think there's a misconception on both ends. E-commerce can seem really daunting and hard as someone that's developed something to, get your product online, and how are you then going to find customers? So being able to provide that platform to those developers, I think will be huge. But also I think there's a misconception around the way that farmers and producers are ingesting this kind of stuff. I mean, living regionally and remotely, they are ordering their food online, they're ordering lots of different things in their lives online, because some people may live 2 to 3 hours from their nearest small town or Woolies, so they're very accustomed to ordering online. There's definitely no trepidation from a customer's end. It's about providing that information and transparency to them up front.
That's amazing. Look, I've got one more question before we wrap up, and I might be putting you on the spot here, I'm not sure, but you've taken a leap from one particular industry into something completely different, and you appear to be loving it and you're thriving there. For people maybe earlier in their career or looking to get into digital or e-com, a lot of people have ideas about where they want to work, their perfect employer. I want to work in this industry. Do you have advice for somebody potentially looking at a potential employer where it's like, I don't know about that industry, I don't know anything about it. Should I jump in? Should I just stick to what I know? What's your advice on shifting and pivoting completely when it comes to your career or your expectations of your career?
Look, I think for me, it's all about that initial conversation. You learn so much about a business and its culture and ethos from chatting with the people that are employing you. So being able to just have that conversation, being open to having that conversation, I think you'll learn so much. And for me, it was very much a gut feeling. That initial conversation, I got so much out of it, and learned so much about where the business was headed. And that really aligned with where I was heading, even though it was in an industry that was completely foreign to me. And I trusted that, they had chosen to reach out to me for a reason. And, when all the stars align, you've got to trust that.
Yep, absolutely. And take a leap of faith sometimes. Sometimes, you know, that can lead you to amazing places, and more often than not, it does.
That's it. I mean, I've started like in all of the jobs that I've had. I ended in a very different place to where I started, and just being open to every opportunity and saying yes to what's available, and you know, applying yourself to what's there. It might not be the stock standard of what you know, was included in your role description at the very beginning, but you'll end up in a much better place at the end of it.
I think most humans are quite bad at trusting their gut. It can actually lead to good things, to that, listening to that initial instinct. So I think you've made a wonderful choice. Mina, thanks for taking the time out of your busy day to talk to us. It's been really lovely chatting with you. I've actually learned quite a bit more about you and the business in this call, and I hope anybody watching has as well. Any last parting comments? Anything you want to sign off with?
No, I will. You know, thank you so much for including me, and it's been really great. I think often in digital industries where moving at such a fast pace, you don't get an opportunity to reflect on you know, what's happened in the last year, or the last 5 years, whatnot. So it's been really great to have the opportunity to do that. So thanks.
You're absolutely right, and thank you very much. This has been Overdose and Chill Live. I hope everybody has enjoyed the chat with Mina from Ceres Tag today, and we'll catch you next time.